Welcome to the Wheelhouse. My name is Ashley Ellis, and today I have a very special guest here with me. He is a man of recovery. He is a mental health advocate. He is someone that I like to say has brought me to a place of just bravery. Man, I can get so emotional just with the intro. But I have here with me my very own husband, Dwayne Ellis.
Hey, boo.
Hey, babe.
How you doing?
Good. I'm excited.
Thank you for the intro.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, this woman here, I'm glad that she came into my life. And something that I respect about you a lot is that you're not content with what the world deems okay and normal. You're always going over and beyond and always searching for a spiritual cleanse. Whatever that may be, we could be watching a movie and we into the movie, an hour into it, and out of nowhere, Ashley is saying, do we need to be watching this? This is so heartbreaking. And I'm sitting here like, oh my gosh, boo, let's just finish the movie. But it's always for the better. And even with our children, you're a great mother, definitely a great wife. And another thing that I noticed that you do, is it would be so easy to just put a roof over our children's head, feed them, and that would be considered okay, good parenting, but you go out of your way. And I'm sure you hear from different family members. My mom is always saying, Ashley is doing a great job with these children while I'm at work. And it's because you're trying to instill things into our children. We speak life over our children. You've made that that's something that we're going to be doing. Easily, our daughter could be labeled something else, but we went out of our way when we're speaking with other people, telling them that, this is a joyful girl. She's a happy girl. And if we didn't do that, she could easily be labeled at this age. She's only 2, y'all, but she could be labeled a brat. She could be labeled this, but we go out of our way. And it always happens when, you could be talking to your friend and telling them about this person that they've never met, but in their head, they're developing this image of this person before they even meet them. And turns out the person is a decent human being, but they're so focused on the flaws that now when they meet this person,
That's all they can think
about. And now when people meet Ava, joy and happiness is all they could think about because you pay attention to those things. And I don't think a lot of people do that. So all the things that have happened in my life, I know God is gracious and forgiving because the things that I've done and for him to bless me with you, I'm truly grateful.
Man.
So that's my intro for this beautiful woman.
Thank you.
And you look good.
I would kiss you, but you're like...
No, I don't do the lipstick. I'm not going to be on here with red lips.
With red lips. Man, I am just beyond thankful. It was important to me that I had Dwayne on as my first guest so that you all knew the home that the Wheelhouse sits in. This man right here is just, people are always telling me, Ash, you're so encouraging, man, I counsel people, but whatever I am, this man is 10 times more. He is the best recovery coach in the world. I know it. I'm not even in recovery, but I can see him. I've literally watched this man shut down his whole Saturday just to drive someone to treatment. I've literally watched this man shut down his whole day just to sit on the phone with someone, making sure they don't have a setback. So, if you guys are ever in need of a recovery coach, this is literally your guy because he truly cares. He puts his heart into every single thing that he does, and it's incredible. One of the things that I always say, I tell you all the time, but I truly mean it. Like, you have brought me to a place of just bravery, being brave. Where does that come from?
Well, there was a time when I wasn't always brave. And if I could just speak on my childhood for a little bit, but before I got introduced to public school, I was sheltered a little bit, right? So always at the house, and I feel like amongst my family in Georgia, where I grew up, I was deemed like the golden boy. Couldn't do no wrong. Super entitled, justified all my actions, no real accountability, only child, bit of a brat. So in my eyes, like, this world was mine. Y'all just living in it. So when I got introduced, when I got that reality check and went to public school, I found out at an early age that I wasn't this prince that I thought I was. This is not Camelot at all. I'm not the guy.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, you're super dark skinned. You got a big nose. You got a lot of these flaws. And the funny thing is, this is stuff I already knew about myself.
Yeah.
But the difference is, I knew that physically I was still attractive. I was confident in that matter. I was outspoken at the house. But it was just something about other people saying it outside of my family, just to know that somebody thought different. I ain't never dealt with no criticism. So when I heard that criticism, I made that my identity. And that's when I got into that shell. And I didn't really know how to adapt. So what I did is I figured out that I needed to be accepted, but I needed to be accepted for who I wasn't. All the things that I saw that were cool, that's what I needed to be doing. I wasn't good with confrontation. So instead of dealing with confrontation, I was the class clown. That made everybody like me. I was on everybody's good side as long as I could just make sure that everybody laughed and didn't have no type of ill will or feel a threat towards me coming from me. So as far as bravery, I didn't get that until I got into recovery. So it was a lot in between that, but bravery eventually came from just being able to be accepted for who I was. And then I became more confident. That's when I found out I had a voice, when I was in recovery. And once I found my voice, I knew that I could advocate for myself and accomplish whatever I wanted to. And it just took another person that had went through what I went through, that I saw that had a voice. It was doing so well in life, spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally. When I adapted that's when the bravery came into place, and you couldn't tell me nothing. So it came from me accepting who I am, what God put me on this earth for. That's when the bravery came into place. And after that, you couldn't tell me nothing. But there was a long period of time where I just operated on fear. So the bravery is, we just 9 years into it, as long as I've been in recovery.
Yeah. Man, just 9 years, it feels like a lifetime, because you are probably, it's funny because you're very outspoken.
Yeah. Now.
But you're someone, like, if there's a little bit of offense, we're talking about it. Like, you are like, no, we're talking about it. But that helps me to spot check, as you would say.
Yeah.
Because I'm not used to that. I'm used to feeling an offense and like holding it in and letting it fester. Now I got a resentment against you. Now it's carrying on days, weeks, months, maybe even a year. Who knows?
Yeah.
But you're teaching me to like, no, spot check.
We got to spot check, because if we hold on to it, Well, for me, if I hold on to it, dope start to sound like a good idea. I can't hold on to too much. So if something's going on, I got to talk about it.
Yeah.
And this doesn't necessarily mean I always got to talk to the offender about it. That's irritating. And that's a lot of work on yourself. And I don't believe, you know, people should be responsible about how you feel. So you don't always have to go to the offender. I mean, if it's a work setting, sometimes, you know, you'll go to the offender, but if you're a person like me, a lot of stuff offends you. So I got to go to God. I got to go to my spiritual advisor. I don't always need to go to the person.
Yeah.
But it's got to get out of my head because that stuff build up. And I feel like when resentments build up in my head, now I'm getting mad at dumb stuff that I normally wouldn't get mad on. Now I'm taking my anger and my frustration out on people that weren't even involved, that don't deserve that.
Yeah.
Now I'm stealing time from other people because I'm stuck in my head and I just rather be by myself in a corner. So I gotta get it out or it becomes toxic.
Yeah. Man, I love that. We're kind of referencing a lot about recovery, and you mentioned dope. Tell me a little bit about like your story with recovery. Like, what is recovery? How did you get there? Like, what is it?
Well, how I got there was, it was about 4 a.m. and I was in my car chasing a dragon. For those who don't know what that is, I asked somebody about it, but I don't think this is the platform to describe what chasing a dragon is. But it involved a straw and some foil and some dope. And I was in the car doing that about 3, 4 a.m. And I know this now, so I'll speak for my mom since she's not here. But my mom heard from God, and God told her, wake up, go in your child's room and look out the window. Told her what window to look out. She looked out that window and she saw me in the driveway smoking heroin. And she didn't know what it was, but what she did know is that it wasn't weed. In her head, all her son did was drink a little bit and he smoked weed. That's what she knew. So the next day she confronted me about it, and she was like, what were you doing in that car? I know it wasn't weed. Tell me what's going on. Up until this point, my behavior was changing already. Dark under my eyes, raccoon eyes. So she knew weed isn't responsible for all the things that I'm seeing in my baby right now.
Yeah.
So my recovery journey, and I would say mostly everybody's recovery journey, begins with some honesty. And I admitted to her what I was doing, and we cried together. And then shortly after that, maybe the next day, maybe the next week, we had an intervention, and I was on my way to Statesboro to go to treatment. But in order for me to get to that point where I wanted to be honest, the Alcoholics Anonymous, any 12-step literature talks about the 4 horsemen: terror, bewilderment, I can't pronounce that word, frustration, and despair. Terror. There were days that I didn't remember. I could go to sleep Monday and wake up on a Wednesday. What happened in between that? What is my life turning into? And it's only going to get worse. You gain that acceptance, like, this is only going to get...
Yeah.
This is going to get bad.
Yeah.
But then, bewilderment, why is this happening to me? I got homies that could pop a pill and go to work the next day. They could just live their life, go out, social environments, all of this stuff. They could put it down for weeks, months. It could be every so often when they go to a party, they drink or pop a few pills and they're good. But why with me is it a necessity? Why do I have to use this to wake up? Why do I have to use this before I brush my teeth? Why me? That's the bewilderment.
Yeah.
Just truly confused. And then frustration, I've tried to stop. There's been plenty of moments, and people that are in addiction or in recovery can probably relate to this, but there's so many God moments, what I call them, but I'll be in the mirror crying like, this is my last time.
Yeah.
And I would have a little corner left, and I would be like, I'm done with this, I promise. Flush it down the toilet. Go to sleep, wake up at 6 a.m. Dope man, you good?
Yeah.
Going down the street to get some more dope. And it was just frustrating because it's like, in my mind, like, I'm serious, like, I'm really about to stop this time. Okay. I'm doing this for my parents.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't work. I'm doing this for the job.
Yeah.
Didn't work.
Yeah.
Never once did I do it for myself, though.
Mm.
And I don't believe anybody can sustain long-term recovery if they're not doing it for themselves eventually. It's good to have that motivation at the beginning from outside sources or your children, whatever you want to do it for, but eventually it's got to be for you. So I was just frustrated as to why I couldn't shake this. And then the last of the four horsemen is despair. That's hopelessness.
Mm.
And experiencing those four horsemen led me to be honest with my mom and started my recovery journey. Recovery for me is being able to not take any mind-altering or mood-altering drugs to change the way I feel. And I can live a life worth living today. That's what recovery is for me. Just being able, as 12-step literature says, dealing with life on life's terms. Accepting that I have a whole bunch of emotions and it's okay.
Mm.
If I'm mad, it's okay for me to be mad.
Mm.
That don't mean I have to act out mad.
Yeah.
That's when coping skills come into play.
Yeah.
Doing things that make me feel better,
Yeah.
that are healthy, exercising,
Yeah.
being around other people in recovery, going to meetings, having that community support. Everybody in recovery needs some type of community. It doesn't have to be 12-step. 12-step don't work for everybody.
Yeah.
But rather it be church, or maybe you got a group of people that you exercise with, you need some type of community. So I used to drink and drug to change the way I feel.
Mm.
I'm really trying to play God in a way.
Mm.
And I honestly believe that a person that's been in addiction or a person that's in recovery,
Yeah.
well, let me rephrase that. I truly believe that a person that's in active addiction or a person that's in recovery has a good chance at finding God, because for so long we are people that have made something our higher power and we've committed to it.
Mm.
We've committed to it.
Mm.
We went out of our way to get that drug.
Well, yeah.
There's a lot of willingness.
Yeah.
Doing stuff that we normally wouldn't do
Yeah.
just to get to this.
Yeah.
It was my higher power, but a person, the amount of commitment that it takes
Yeah.
to be in addiction, I feel like that's the type of person that can find God,
Yeah.
because we're used to committing to something greater than us.
Yeah.
I thought the drugs was greater than,
Yeah.
anything that I had ever came across. So that's a pretty long answer for what recovery was, but recovery is so complex, I don't know how to just answer it
Yeah.
in a couple sentences.
You can't.
Mm-mm.
You can't. Man, that's so good. There's so many things that you mentioned. One of the things you talked about was in the journey, like you wanted to stop multiple times.
Yeah.
Multiple times you wanted to stop, and you would, flush it down the toilet, look yourself in the mirror and be like, you know what, that's it. I think God uses those moments. I talk a lot about before I surrendered myself to God, there were several moments where I knew He was calling me. Kind of like those four horsemen. There were several moments where I knew He's like, okay. Like you talk about, like there were people who could like take a pill every now and then, just party, go to work. Like my mom would tell me all the time, you can't do what everyone else does.
You can't.
You can't do what everyone else does. And I'm thankful because what I didn't know that I know now is that I have a lineage of just people who were praying. I'm sure my great-great-grandmother, her prayers are still here carrying through this bloodline, making sure that everyone in this bloodline makes it to heaven.
Yeah.
And I know the same is for you. I mean, your grandfather is a minister. Like, those prayers are going to continue to rock up the generation, making sure, like, no, this bloodline is getting to heaven. Right. And I love that. I mean, the Bible talks about faith without works. Like, just those moments of flushing it down the toilet. Although it didn't work, like those were still like faith gestures. Like I'm going to stop this. And it just takes someone. I mean, we talked about it the other day. Like I didn't know it was an option for me to surrender until someone called and made an altar call. Until someone gave an altar call and was like, I feel like there's someone here who wants to surrender. Are you here? Is that you? Like I didn't know it was an option until someone created the space for me to surrender. And that's kind of, what happened with you. Your mom and, your family created the space for you to surrender.
Yeah, they did. They did. And it was so funny because you kind of spoke on it just now when you're saying your grandmother's prayers are still, doing their work today.
Yeah.
But even my family's experiences, they had a cause for what was going on with me in 2016. My grandma was a part of this intervention. And long ago, my grandma was like that nurse in Dublin, Georgia, small, rural town. And if you go to Dublin, they gonna know my grandma. She was that, she had that type of impact. And she had so much of an impact that she was the head nurse for this paper mill in this small town, and she dealt with people that were in addiction, and she had connections with this treatment center in Statesboro.
Wow.
An expensive treatment center in Statesboro. But my grandma had such a great rapport with this treatment center, they gave us the family discount.
Wow.
And I went to a great treatment center.
Wow.
And it's just because of her works. All this time gone by, but what she did back then served its purpose for me.
Wow.
And I was able to go to a good treatment center.
Wow.
Where I was introduced to 12 steps, and the rest is history.
Wow. I love that. Just hearing that almost makes me want to like tear up, because it's like all things, the Bible says all things work together for the good of those who are called. Like all things, like even like your parents' actions, like your grandparents, like their works are all working together to make sure that whoever's listening, to make sure that you get to where you need to be. Yeah. That's powerful. Yeah. That's so good. I love that so much. Man, I remember, because we're married.
Yeah, we're married. I got the ring.
But I can remember, we didn't tell them, I mean, I guess we can kind of mention it. We met in college. So we met in 2010. Yeah. We met years before we actually started dating, and we were fairly close in that season. We were. We would have a lot of just deep conversations, like
walks at nighttime.
Walks at night, just having deep conversations, like, and that's kind of a testament to my life. Like I'm always somewhere in a deep conversation. Yeah. But I can remember like back then, just like having these long walks, and then I would just ask you something, and you would be like, girl, like, okay, that's enough. Like you.
Similar to now. Like, we'll be in the middle of watching a show, and you'll see a message, and I gotta pause the show. And
a whole sermon just pops.
Whole sermon.
Nothing has changed. Yeah. Nothing has changed. But I can remember, asking you stuff about like your family, your mom, your dad, and like I would hit like a nerve Talk to me a little bit about like your in-house family. Like, what was that like as a kid?
So, like I said before, I grew up as a only child, and I had a great childhood, man. But my mom she was always worried, kind of like how she is now with our grandchildren, always worried about something. But there was that spirit in the house, and then my pops. We just had a funky relationship, only because we're so much alike.
Yeah.
And I know that today, and because of recovery, we have a great relationship today. But back then, it just got to a certain point to where I became a teenager. We know what teenagers do. And probably in that season where I felt you might have hit a nerve, that was a point in time where I was acting out. And as we spoke before, accountability and criticism wasn't in my book. I didn't know nothing about that, so I didn't do too well with them. So they were just being parents, and I was just being a brat. So that's probably where that nerve came from. But my parents did a great job, and I do want to highlight some of the things that I feel like they did right. Which was they made an effort to spend quality time together. Like we would lay out the towel across, because we didn't eat at a table. We laid out a towel in front of the bed, and we all laid across the bed and ate food and watched the TV, and they made sure to spend a lot of time with me. And I always felt loved. I always felt loved, and I knew even if I was going through something bad, I could come home. Could go to my parents. So I do want to highlight that. I'm thankful for them. But I had a great childhood. You know, there was a little bit of trauma that led to a lot of bitter problems. That had nothing to do with my parents. But yeah.
That's so good.
And you probably don't even know this, but my mom wanted me to marry you a long time ago, and it all came from when you snitched on me. So in Valdosta, there was like, you know, college campus nurse. You go to the clinic, you know, if you're sick, they help you out, right? So I just came up with this plan in my head, and I'm probably at Valdosta, I'm probably maybe 3 or 4 years into my addiction at this point. So right now I'm just on pills. I haven't graduated to heroin yet. And I was fiending for some pills. I needed to change the way I felt. This was a new environment. I didn't know how to adapt to it, so I wanted to rely on my higher power, which at that time was drugs. That was gonna make me feel confident, make me feel better. It was gonna give me everything that I needed or felt like I needed to get through this whole college experience. So I came up with this plan to fake a seizure in my room. And I had already had a cracked tooth from the night before, a night that I don't remember. So that was a part of it. And I remember coming to you like, and this is the thing, like, if you are a committed person in addiction, your lie has to resonate with everybody. Nobody, you don't let anybody in on the fact that you're lying. You have to keep up with this web of lies, and everybody has to believe it. So in my efforts, I came to you and let you know, hey, I had a seizure. I had cracked my tooth. I showed you it. I told you I felt like I was gonna die. I was going through a lot, and I was trying to get some pain pills from the clinic. That's what I was trying to do. I didn't tell you that part. Next thing I know, I get a phone call from my parents. My mom is crying like, why didn't you tell this? Why didn't you tell us this was going on? We're coming down right now. I was like, oh my gosh. And you didn't know, but I didn't know that you was finna call my parents. But my mom talks about that moment like, Ash has been caring about you. you know, you don't play about me, but you hold me accountable.
Yeah.
And that's another reason why I love you. And it just helps me grow even more. A lot of people, with the people they love, they ignore some things that don't need to be ignored.
Yeah.
But you don't.
Yeah.
You acknowledge all of it. And I think we do that for,
Yeah.
it's a back and forth thing. It's mutual. But yeah, my mom has been wanting me to marry you ever since that moment where you cared enough to reach out to my parents and let them know that, hey, your son is on his deathbed. He just had a seizure. When all I'm trying to do is get some pills.
The deathbed. I remember that. Because I remember you talking about I was foaming at the mouth and
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God. Oh my God.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So that's pretty much the genesis of our relationship.
Yeah.
But I can remember like fast forwarding, I don't know what year, 2016, 17.
Mm-hmm.
But we have a mutual friend. I remember him calling me saying, man, DJ, which is what we all used to call you.
Yeah.
DJ is in rehab. I was like, what? What happened? And at this point, I think I'm like full-time ministry. I'm like,
Yeah.
I had the whole church praying for you. I mean, I'm not joking around.
Really?
I was in the staff,
Oh my
so
God.
I dropped it in the staff. Like my friend
God.
from college is in rehab. Like he's such a good person. Like we were praying for you
That's wild.
for like I don't even know how long, but like that was serious. I was like, oh my God, and I'm like, well, what kind of drugs are gonna lead you to rehab?
Shoot, all of them.
I was like, what? He was like, heroin. I was like, how did he get heroin? Where did you get it? Like, talk to me about, we're laughing, but like, you talk about like caring. I mean, my whole, like everything shut down to make sure that we were, not just me, I'm like, my prayers aren't enough. Like, I need to make sure that all the prayer warriors I know are making sure you're okay. We were praying for you.
Crazy. That's crazy. Done told the whole staff about me. But I appreciate it now that I look back on it.
Yeah, that was serious stuff. But, I mean, all right. So talk to me about how one thing led to another and you coming from like weed to drinking to pills to heroin.
Okay. All right. I got injured running track. I think this was my sophomore year in high school. Something happened with my knee and I had to get surgery. And I woke up from that surgery and man, it was till this day, physically, that's the best feeling I've ever felt. Well, second best until I tried heroin. But I woke up from surgery and I felt so uplifted, so happy. I was telling my mom, I had a girlfriend in high school at the time, hey, call her, tell her I love her. I was calling my cousin Pierce, I was telling him I love him. I was just full of love, happiness, and I didn't know where this was coming from. I was confident, everything.
Yeah. You said high school?
This was high school. This was like sophomore year. And I was like, where did that come from? And then there was this, I think it might have been lower tabs, some pills, right? That they gave me to go home with. And I started taking them. And I felt that feeling again, that sunshine in my stomach. And I was like, oh, this is causing that. So at this time, I've realized that drugs can be a long-term solution for me. Everything is better. I'm no longer insecure. I don't have low self-esteem. I got a big nose, but I look good with it. I'm dark-skinned, but I look good.
Yeah.
I'm not.
And you do look good.
I appreciate you, boo. I'm not fearful anymore.
Yeah.
I'm standing up for myself.
Yeah.
I'm fighting.
Yeah.
All these things I felt like I needed, or what I saw that the cool kids were doing, I was able to do all that with the drugs.
Yeah.
So now I'm like, let's just explore the candy shop. That's where the weed came into play. Alcohol, cocaine, Molly. I did everything but crack and meth. Everything else I did, but I'm just shopping around at this time. You go in a clothing store, you shop around, you look around, but that's the shirt you like the most. That's the outfit that you like. Yeah. And for me, that outfit was opiates. Like, that was my thing.
Yeah.
Then it got to a point where opiates became very expensive. Yeah. Charged like $1 a milligram. So if you want a 30 milligram something, that's $30. Became expensive, and heroin was just the cheaper option, and it felt 10 times better. So that's how I got introduced to all of that.
Yeah. One of the things that I know you're super passionate about is that age group where it started for you.
Oh, yeah.
The high school, that middle school age, that young adult age. Yeah. What is it, if anything, what is it, or what are the signs that maybe a parent can look out for, or maybe a child has an injury like you playing football, track, whatever. Like, what could a parent do to kind of make sure they're not going down a path of addiction? Like, what can they do to stop it before it even starts?
Unfortunately, it might be too late. That's one thing. Let's be realistic here. And then another thing is to get to know your child, as elementary as that sounds. But my mom, I was able to get away with it for so long because my mom and dad, they knew me, but they didn't know me. And that's because maybe there might have been a lack of communication. But my parents were very present, right? But there were certain conversations that probably needed to be had, like, what's going on in school? Are you having any issues in school? Let me share my experience about what I went through in school. Let me make this comfortable for you to be able to talk to me. Yeah. And those conversations just didn't happen. Yeah. So one thing I'm going to do as a parent is to make sure that I'm always practicing like effective communication with my child. Yeah. Letting them talk, get it all out. Yeah. At an early age, not shutting them down. If my daughter is talking about this elephant that she saw on the cartoon, let me just let her talk about that and just listen and not cut her off. Allow her to express herself. I just want to have a relationship with my children to where I know a lot of what they're going through. That way, when the behavior change happens, I can be aware of it. Wait, I know Ava, which is my daughter, I know her to act like this. That's a little off. And I don't believe that my parents had that awareness, that discernment of what was really going on. Yeah. Until God nudged her on the shoulder and was like, hey, go look out that window. Yeah. By then, though, it was a little too late. So I would just encourage all parents to get to know your child and don't be afraid to admit your own flaws, because that's going to open up the door. Yeah. Everybody that I'm close to in recovery, my spiritual advisors, those who got sober before me that I still talk to today, our relationship developed because we were able to talk to each other about our bad days. They're 5 years into recovery. Yeah. I'm 2 months into recovery. Yeah. But we both have issues with our supervisor at work. He still has days where he might think about using. It's a fleeting thought. Yeah. But him sharing that with me allowed me to open up. He wasn't on this mountaintop talking down to me about what I need to do. He was sharing his flaws too, and how he worked through it. And not only did we talk about problems, we got to the solution. We just didn't call and complain and not get to know type of solution. But as a parent, you want to be able to communicate with your child, but also share what you went through and the flaws that you deal with, because that's going to open up the door for them to communicate. If you're just that authoritative figure that's never wrong, that's not attractive, that's not welcoming.
That's so good.
I'm not going to let you in on what I'm going through. And when I do go through something, you're probably not going to even notice, because you don't really know me.
Wow.
You might know that my favorite food is pizza, but you don't really know me.
Wow.
So that's the only advice I can give, and for some people it might be too late already. But that doesn't mean the worst.
Yeah. Because even when you say it was too late for you, like there's still, like, you're here.
I'm here, yeah.
Yeah, so there's still things that you can do wherever that person is.
Yeah.
One of the things I love, and you say this a lot about your dad, you kind of reference him as like King Kong. You didn't know he was the good guy until later on.
Yeah, Godzilla.
Yeah. You didn't know he was the good guy until later on. And I love that, because it kind of ties into what you just said, like making sure your child knows that you're human, you're still flesh, like they can still touch you, even though you're the authority figure, like they know that this is a safe space. Yeah. That's something that I think every kid, every parent can relate to, because I kind of have the same thing where I didn't talk to my parents. My parents didn't know the ins and outs of me. I don't know if they knew my favorite color. I mean, it was changing so much. I like purple, I like yellow, like it was changing so much. Like I don't know how much of like me they knew. Yeah. Like I would cry myself to sleep often. Did they know I was in the next room? You know, like I think creating that space where your child is able to really come to you is so important. Yeah. Because, I mean, for you it was drugs. For me, it might have been like molestation. Like things are happening being bullied at school. Like things are happening in a child's life every single day that they're going in their bed meditating on. Yeah. Like literally meditating on. And if you're able to just have a conversation and interrupt that thought, man. Yeah. And the reason I say it's too late too, because it is complex. It's another thing that's complex, and it starts at an early age. And if you don't establish that young with your child, that type of relationship, you're going to have to cut corners and take shortcuts to get to what they're going through. Yeah. And that can be detrimental. You can be frustrated with them, like, what's really going on with you? You can have a lack of understanding, like, why are you doing these? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? And that type of, for me, when somebody told me to stop doing something, it just makes me run harder. Or shut down. So that's the reason why I say it might be late for a lot of people, but there's still hope. Yeah. But for those new parents, or those parents that have younger children, start now. Build that relationship now, because I mean, life just lives. You know, life be life, and then you don't know what door the enemy is going to try to get in. So just making sure that you have a soldier at every door. Your presence is at every door of your child's life is really a big deal. Man, I think that's so good. Yeah. That's so good. Talk to me about, like, what the transition has been like outside of like 12-step and, you know, the recovery world that you're in. Now you're a husband, a father, like how has that transition been on this side of reality? Well, again, it starts at the beginning of my recovery. Everything that I established at the beginning. Being in a halfway house with 20 dudes, it was so strict. Going to 3 or 4 meetings a day. We would go play basketball. We developed our recovery capital in that halfway house. And it was a bubble. This bubble, and for those who don't know what a halfway house is, it's long-term treatment.
house full of, you got other dudes in there that are trying to get sober. But the one I went to in particular was super strict, and it allowed me to build my recovery capital, but it was a bubble. And within this bubble, it's just preparing you for life outside of this bubble. Within that bubble, it's 20 dudes, different personalities, right? So if I can learn how to communicate and have healthy conflict with this person, nobody out there is going to have a shot at me. I'm not going to blow up on that person or do something to that person. I'm going to know how to deal with it effectively. But to your question, I believe everything I did at the beginning of my recovery journey has prepared me to spend more time with the family, with my wife, with my kids. I may not have time to do certain things, but I have a long list of recovery capital that I've developed. Similar to financial capital, you just don't got all your money in one thing. You have your job, you got liquid, all this furniture that we own is worth something. Sweat equity, all the upgrades that we've done to the house, your investments, all of that stuff makes up your financial capital. So maybe if you have a difficulty,
that's good.
It's not just one stream of income that you have other things that can help you when you're going through a financial difficulty. So when I'm going through a difficulty, I have more than just going to 12-step meeting. Because there's going to be a time where I can't just go to meetings. I'm at the house, I'm playing with my kids. The car broke down, I can't drive nowhere. We don't got no internet, I can't go to a virtual meeting. What else can I do? I can exercise, I could pray, I could journal. I can meditate. So I have this long list of recovery capital to help me out when life happens. So that's how I've been able to make the transition, because all the other things I have in place. We got the church groups now. So that's virtual. That's something I could do. That's how I deal with it. There's more than one thing that I could do to support my recovery.
And you have so much. I mean, we got 2 kiddos now, and life is full. So does it feel like, because I know at one point you talk about, living in the house, going to meetings, like your whole life was recovery. Like, does it still feel like that? Or is it like more brief? Like, what does it feel like now?
It still feels like a life of recovery. Things were just different then because I didn't have a wife or children. But God gave me recovery for this reason. Like, I'm supposed to be a husband. I'm supposed to be raising these children. So it's all supposed to be happening like this. And, this is what recovery looks like too. Recovery has so many faces. Recovery looks like a family, kids, going on vacation. For some people, recovery looks like hitting a meeting every day. That was just a different phase, a different season of my life, but this is still recovery. It still affects everybody in this house, me being in recovery, us being able to communicate good. When you give me criticism, me being able to take it is because of recovery. Every Sunday at that halfway house, we had an accountability meeting where we got in a circle and we literally just tore into each other. Like, this is what you've been doing wrong this week. And not necessarily that they were right. It was just something for you to look at going into your next week. Hey, DJ, you had an attitude this week. You didn't do your chore well. It's just something to look at. But me going through that, it affects our relationship today. I'm able to take criticism better. I'm not perfect. But recovery affects this household. The way that we talk to our children. You mentioned that, you've I believe that you've always been brave, but now you're starting to be aware of it. That's because of recovery. I'm brave. I'm outspoken. I advocate because of recovery. So it affects the household. It just look a little different.
It just looks like
I'm just not single with no kids anymore. It just look different.
I love that because it shows another light. Like when we think about recovery, when we think about 12-step, we are thinking about rehab. Like for a person like me, I don't know anything outside of you.
Yeah.
So for the average person, maybe the person who's struggling with an addiction now, they're only thinking like rehab. They're only thinking 12 step. But to see the other side, it kind of opens up the floor to like surrender, man.
Yeah.
You know, like what would you say to someone who's like in active addiction right now? Like what would you say to kind of give them that push over to just surrender?
Man, I don't just want to say anything either. So I would say to them, you deserve to live. And dead people don't recover. You're not living right now. I've been there. So many people have been, maybe not necessarily where you're at specifically, but you're not living, and you deserve to live. You're worth it. Wow. There's so much shame attached to a person in addiction, and that's because of how the world looks at people in addiction. Addiction is a disease that affects the brain. The definition of a disease is, an organ in your body being attacked, basically, right? When your heart gets attacked or when your lungs get attacked and you're in a hospital and you got cancer, there's empathy, there's sympathy, there's support, there's compassion. But when the disease affects this organ, your brain, and it manifests in a different way, and the symptoms don't look like me sitting in a bed in a hospital, it looks like me shoplifting to get my next high. It just looks a little different. So there's a lot of shame. There's a lot of stigma attached to a person in addiction, so they can be just all the time and feel bad. But to that person, you deserve to live, man, or woman. You deserve to live. That's all I could say to them. You deserve to live, and you do have a voice.
So good.
Ask for help.
Ask for help.
Ask for help.
I love that. And I think that's a good place to kind of end. You deserve to live. You are the best recovery coach I've ever encountered. And we can just drop the recovery, like the best coach I've ever met. Coaches kind of fall in the realm of therapists, counselors, like it's kind of all of that in one under coach. And you do that for me every single day. I remember going to therapy and then coming to you like right after. And I'm like, listen, I don't know what she was talking about. But like there's some people who, go to school, they get the degree and they're just doing it to make money off of it. They're not really good at it. They don't really have a heart for it. They don't really have the experience behind it. But you have all of that. And I just want, like, we have DwayneSpeaks.com.
Dwayne Speaks. So what I'm starting now in this new season, I'm going to be speaking at different schools, because for me, that's when it happened. That's when your brain isn't even fully developed. And what's being attacked when you're in addiction, your brain. That's, as a disease, that's the organ it affects is your brain. And that is a pivotal point of a person's life. And that's when it started for me. So I want to speak at, she helps me with the way I say my words. I'm going to be speaking, and I already have spoken at colleges and high schools. I'm bringing awareness to addiction, recovery messaging, different risk factors, and I'm just sharing different parts of my testimony, hopefully to help at least one person.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm going to be doing. You could go to DwayneSpeaks.com. If you scroll to the bottom, there's different boxes. Just fill in all the fields. And there's a place where you can attach a file with more details about the event. And we'll reach out.
Yeah.
Me and my team. That's my team.
So good. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you, boo.
That was a great story to be told. Love you, man.